parties were in favour of that before the last election, including the Fianna Fáil party, which has reverse engines for their own reasons. And as I say, many people thought this question would never be put to people. They felt that politics did not have the courage to put the question to the people. They felt that the senators themselves would not put the bill through the Seanad. And as I said to the Senate, the fate of Seanad lies in the hands of the people. We want to continue demonstrating that changes being made in the Dáil will engage with public society and civil society in a way that is right and proper for a functioning democracy.
That was Taoiseach Enda Kenny at the launch of his party's campaign in support of a yes vote to abolish the Seanad. Well, Fianna Fáil are in favour of keeping and reforming the Seanad, and they're calling for a no vote to the government's proposal. I've been speaking to their party leader Micheal Martin, and if he doesn't defend the Seanad as it is, and he doesn't, why keep it?
Why keep it is basically we have too much concentration of power in a small number of ministers today. The degree of power that the government holds over the entire Parliament is extraordinary, and it's getting worse. If you look at, for example, proposals like the introduction of the property tax, the respite care grant, the cuts to child benefit, all of those were rammed through in 24 hours to 36 hours in the Dáil, simply because the government dictated that that's the way it should be with a huge majority. So what we now need really is to reduce and dilute the concentration of power in the cabinet and within the cabinet to a small number of ministers over everybody else. And getting rid of the Seanad now, in our view, would only increase the power of ministers over the parliamentary system. What we want is a separate system, a more independent parliament.
Okay, so you say the government has too much power and you want to keep the Seanad and you want to reform it. But you look at the Fine Gael posters, they're pretty clear and straightforward. Save money, fewer politicians, well then you vote to get rid of the Seanad, you vote yes in this referendum. It's clear and understandable. You say, on the other hand, from Fianna Fáil's point of view, reform the Seanad. We've been talking about reforming the Seanad since the year dot, surely.
Well, the government position isn't clear on you. The figures they put forward in terms of savings are dishonest and have no foundation. And we know that from official statements in terms of what it would cost to abolish the Seanad. But bear this in mind, not one red cent will be saved between now and 2016 if people voted yes. And people need to realise this. The Seanad would continue on to the next general election. The bottom line is, in terms of, yes, people have a right in terms of the lack of reform over the years. But remember, we've been through an unprecedented economic crisis, and every single political party before the last general election said they would profoundly change how we govern Ireland. Profoundly change the relationship between Cabinet and Parliament. Nothing has happened of substance in relation to how Ireland is governed. I think we all have an obligation to do that, and we've put forward, in our view, very concrete proposals.
Okay,
we see
but
this
you're
as a power
talking
grab by
about
the
cuts,
government.
right? Yes, you're talking about cuts, and the fact that the government, as you see it, is wasting money on this referendum campaign. But the Seanad is pretty much a nursery for ex or would-be politicians. It's certainly elitist because only certain groups have the vote. Why should the taxpayer in these times be footing the bill for that?
Well, fundamentally, I'm not arguing for the retention of the Seanad as it presently is. I think people should vote no, and by voting no, say to the government, we want real reform. We want to change what people are doing in the Dáil and in the Seanad. And that's why people should vote no. And, we have legislation that's been proposed by independent senators, Quinn and Zappone, which could immediately be brought before both houses to bring in real reform. We don't need to concentrate even more and more power in a small group of people within the cabinet.
You want to debate the Taoiseach on this, a TV debate?
Absolutely. The Taoiseach said that he regards this as a democratic revolution, as the most significant constitutional change since the foundation of the state. So clearly there's an obligation of the Taoiseach to debate this on RTE and in every other station that will host a debate. And he shouldn't avoid debate with other political leaders in relation to this fundamental change.
Isn't Sinn Féin your real opposition, though, here in many ways? They want to scrap the Seanad. They argue, and the evidence is there, it's an elitist institution. That's going to be a tricky position for you to be involved in opposition, isn't it? That argument going on your flank, not to mention the Chris Andrews defection.
Not at all. Sinn Féin will always adopt a position in any referendum to suit their own political position in terms of electoral advantage, as they see it. Although there's divided opinion within Sinn Féin, and of course they have never been slow to use Seanad in terms of cultivating the careers of their own candidates.
Well, you could accuse many parties of that, Micheal
Of course you could.
Martin, couldn't you?
You could, of course, but Sinn Féin seem to be trying to have it both ways in accusing others of utilising the Seanad when they were most adept themselves, particularly in their arrangements with the Labour Party in terms of votes. But the bottom line is this, that this issue is more than political parties. It's about how Ireland is governed. And that's the core point I want to say to the Irish people. Because of the crisis that has occurred, and because the political structures as we have them have been a significant contributor to that crisis, we do need to change them. We do need to change them.
But shouldn't Fianna Fáil of all parties, given the track record in particular of the last government, given the debacle, a government you were a part of, given the debacle that happened in this country and this economy, shouldn't Fianna Fáil of all parties be the one going, let's sweep the past away?
Well, that's exactly what we're proposing. We're proposing far more profound and deeper change in terms of how Ireland is governed. And at the end of July, I published a very detailed policy document in terms of how we should reform the Dáil. And now we've published a detailed document in terms of the Seanad. And I've put forward very radical ideas over the last 2.5 years in terms of how we should, for example, not just confine members of the government to members of Dáil and the Seanad, that it should be opened up to people outside of politics. I've put forward proposals that we should have a secret ballot to elect a Ceann Comhairle of Parliament, and that we should have an independent Parliament that has far greater degree of independence from government. So I'm putting forward, I'm learning lessons from the crisis. Every other political party said they wanted to do change. The government have had a chance for 2.5 years, and despite the extraordinary crisis we are going through, they've delivered absolutely nothing in terms of fundamental change.
You didn't manage to persuade Chris Andrews on this. He went with the Sinn Féin argument and he's gone to that party.
Well, the circumstances in terms of how Chris Andrews left our party, I think are well known in terms of activities in relation to cyberbullying and of members within the party, and there was a disciplinary process underway. He did choose to resign. It's up to Chris to join whatever political party he wants to. That's his business.
Is he a loss?
Well, not at all. I mean, Chris had resigned some time back. The Deputy Director of our election is Councillor Jim O'Callaghan, for example, who's a very able representative.
So you can afford to do without him in Dublin South East?
No, we have plenty of candidates coming forward in Dublin South East. I don't want to comment personally on Chris. It's Chris's own options that he can decide himself, but we will be concentrating on the personnel that are coming through in Dublin South East in our party and people who are joining us.
And that was the Fianna Fáil leader, Micheal Martin, speaking to me earlier. Now, today is World Suicide Prevention